Hey everyone, Phoenix here. Today I am talking with An Adventure, my co-creator of the Chittick League on the Levistras server, the third season of the Levistras Explorers Society, which just wrapped up at the beginning of March here. AA, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, good to be here.
Awesome. So we did this for the first two leagues. It's kind of become a tradition now with these leagues to do a little bit of a retrospective. So in this video, we wanted to talk about the league, what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, feedback we received, and maybe some of our future plans. So let's jump right into it. We have some stats that we can share about the league. We had 131 characters enter the league, 64 of which signed up for the leaderboard, which I think is a really nice number of players. We have some stats on some of the more highly used items, or it's hard to say highly used items because we don't have complete information, but these are the items at the end of the league that characters still had. There could have been a ton of items that were used throughout the league and then, people got rid of them, specifically thinking about like the spell certificates. Those were like used and then they would be deleted, so we wouldn't know how many people actually used those. The most used item in the league, or left at the end of the league, was the Everlasting Gem of Stillness. Then we have the Everlasting Lesser Stamina Kit, the Explorer's Cloak, Intricate Society Bracelet of Elements, and Intricate Society Bracelet of Force. What do you think about those items? Were those the ones that you kind of expected players to gravitate towards?
Yeah, the Gem of Stillness, definitely. And I think that was the second highest one, which makes sense because I think the highest one required level 200.
Right.
A bit surprised by the stamina kit. I figured one of the health kits would be higher, and the bracelets, the protection bracelets, were really useful. I used them on my character, and I think the requirements for them worked well with a lot of builds because they required alchemy and shield.
Yeah, I have to guess that the actual most used items would be the spell certificates, but because those got deleted, we don't get that information. But personally, I know I was using the Everlasting Gem of Stillness, and it was like incredible just to run through some of the level 150 dungeons and just dispel at will.
Yeah, I did get a chance to use it. I never had mana conversion specialized, so I missed out on that one.
Yeah, playing a war mage, that was one of the prime benefits. And then do you want to talk about the individual score information that we have for the different NPCs for the league?
Sure. Yeah. So the total points for the knight, that was the titles, was 51,795. For the hunter, it was 70,060. The barbarian was 80,990. The Nanjiao was 81,200. And the Hieromancer was 198,050. So by far the most points there.
Is that because of the way that we structured the score that NPC gave out?
I think so. The ninja statues were a one-time thing, so there were only so many points you could get there. And likewise, the titles, you could only get them once per character, and nobody likes grinding titles anyways. But the quest you could repeat daily, and a lot of them were pretty easy to do daily. And then the hunter, people definitely went for it. It's not the last. Grinding trophies is really hit or miss, right? You can get lucky, you can go for days and not get one. And the barbarian, I think, worked out pretty well, having multiple kill tasks for each tier. So I'm not surprised that one did pretty well.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good spread. I mean, I agree with you that the titles makes the most sense as the bottom. I was just surprised that the quest was the highest because personally, and this is something we'll get to with the feedback, but some of the quests were a little bit tougher than we had originally thought. So, I guess everybody in the end kind of did what they needed to do to flag for those quest rewards, and then that's where the high score came from. So we kind of wanted to provide some context for the Chittick League. Originally, we had intended to run the Karenzi League. That was our main league that we were building for several months, and I think we just kind of overshot what we could build in that period of time. We had to pivot to what ended up being the Chittick League, which I'm still pretty happy with how the Chittick League turned out, but we just wanted to maybe provide some information very broadly because we do think we're going to reuse a lot of what we made for the Karenzi League. But do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the items that were sold at the vendor, you made all of those, and they were originally for the Karenzi League, which may explain some of the discrepancies in the skills required. So people had some feedback about how some of the skills didn't make that much sense. And I think they would make more sense in the Carenzi League context. And the Carenzi League was originally going to be a lot like the Bander League, where there was going to be quest NPCs and you're going to have a line of quests and just reusing retail quests. And when we pivoted to the Chittick League, we actually made the title hunting, the trophy hunting, kill tasks, and hidden statues all from scratch starting then. So those were very much last minute additions, and I think they worked out pretty well.
I would agree with that. Yep. So yeah, like everything that we made for that league is gonna end up, and we'll talk about that later in future league. But just some context about how this league came about, I think, is worth talking about. So, and then we wanted to briefly discuss how we arrived at the kill tasks and the trophies, and because I think a lot of people that came up a lot during the league of like people going and doing one specific kill task when at a place when the intention was maybe to find the place where you could do multiple of these things at the same time to maximize benefit.
Yes. So with the kill task, my main goal when I was picking out what creatures to use was to have one creature of every creature level, whatever they start at, like 8, 15, 20, and so on, and to try to not repeat any creature types. So there was one Banderling kill task. There weren't any more. And that's how we ended up with the Viridian Rise Gromnies at the end. There wasn't a lot left to pick from that was at that high level.
I don't think a lot of people did that one.
Yeah. The experience for the kill tasks was the experience value for that creature times the number of creatures for the kill task times 10. So I think that was pretty fair reward. The Gromny task would have been 1.2 billion experience, and it would have been 20 league coins instead of, it would have been 16 if it was following the pattern of just increasing by 1. But I felt like since it was extra difficult to give it a little bit more of a reward. And the idea with the trophies was to pair with a kill task of the same tier, not necessarily to be a trophy that the creature that the kill task is for dropped, but a creature you would find in the same area of the world. I did not spend much time with most of the creatures looking for specific dungeons that you would be grinding them in. I was mostly basing it off of outdoor spawns. People like to min-max and find the best way to do stuff, so there was a lot of interesting dungeons found to do these.
Right. And I think, the outdoor spawns was actually really fun. And that's like the first night of the league, me and you and a couple other people were running around on the islands that Sanamar is on and like doing like a couple of different kill tasks, like retail kill task, a league kill task, and then also like hunting for trophies on some of the items. And like that was one of the most fun things of the league. I don't think I've ever, at least in my emulator days, done an outdoor kill task with a group like that before.
Yeah, that was kind of the experience I was hoping we would get. And I think they're just beyond that set that you were talking about. There weren't a lot of other good retail content to pair a lot of them with, so it makes sense that people naturally just went to dungeons to find spawns.
Yeah, that's maybe something to think about for future design if we bring kill tasks back, and just that was an enjoyable experience. So. And I think that's the other thing we should maybe mention with the kill tasks is, we banned summoning for this league. So that was kind of our intention, was to use kill tasks for this league because summoning is such a bonus for kill tasks that we could put everybody on a level playing field with this league. And I think that did work out pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. And also there was a fairly last minute adjustment to the kill task counts as well. I believe that originally each individual kill task increased by 5. So the Gromny kill task, I forget, it was like 45 or 65, something completely stupid. And I think it ended up at 25.
Yeah, we did a last minute adjustment to make those a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, with the no summoning in mind.
Yep. Awesome. So that's a good discussion on our design. Next, we wanted to talk about, at least in our opinion and through some of the feedback, what we thought went right with the league. So the first thing is the length of the league. So when we talk about this in the context of all 3 leagues, the Auroch League was 3 months. the Banner League was 1 month, and this was about 2 months. So how did you feel about that duration versus the other two leagues that we've run?
I think it was good. Oracle League, obviously, it went on too long. There was a pretty big kind of lull in the middle where not many people were doing anything. And the Banner League, on the opposite, kind of felt like too much of a rush. So I did notice in this league there it did seem to drop off a little bit in the middle as well, but the middle was only a week or two. So it felt much better to me this time.
Yeah, for me, I think this length seemed just about perfect, where if you didn't, like, say you went on vacation for a week or you had something happen in real life, like missing a week of gameplay didn't fully set you back, whereas that would have been the case for Banner League. You would have missed a quarter of the league. That this gives you, like, some additional buffer to just make sure it can enjoy the league and still have enough time to do everything you want, and having a lull is kind of okay. That's how seasonal content works in every game with major publishers. So I don't think we're ever going to solve that issue, just the two of us.
No, I don't think we will.
Cool. So the other thing was the variety of content. I think we had quests, kill tasks, trophies, titles, and probably the coolest thing we had this league was the hidden objects that you worked out. So I think we did have a variety of content, and there was some positive feedback around that as well.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed doing the hidden objects. I love putting, weird lore riddles in for things, and I'm glad they were all found.
Yeah, I was surprised players did such a good job finding the ones that had no clues. Like I was sure that one of those was going to slip by.
Yeah, I was shocked that they did the Hoshino quest where you get the ninja armor, and they found that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good players on Levistras who can do that kind of stuff. So
there were a handful of 275s at the end of the league.
That's awesome. The next thing is the custom league items. I felt like, we kind of mentioned it at the top with all the statistics. I felt like that went pretty well. Obviously, we're going to talk about this also in the what went wrong. But for the what went right part, what did you think about the custom items?
I think they helped fill a lot of the gaps that previous leagues have had. So it's a pain to grind out full sets of buffs, right? And this helped cover some of them. We had a lot of good variety in the ways you could cover buffs. There was the unlimited beers, there was the jewelry, and there was several different types of jewelry as well. And then there was, I don't know how often it got used, but there was the imbue salvage as well. That means you didn't have to grind to at least try for an imbue.
I mean, personally, I use that so much. But some of the feedback we got regarding the items was that people enjoyed making positive choices for their character as opposed to being specifically restricted as we did with the previous leagues. So I think that that's kind of like a nice, it's almost like a mental shift of like, hey, we're restricting you with, you can only take 2 out of 3 magic skills, but you have these other choices that you can make that are interesting. And I think that that's something that we do want to, we plan on building on for future leagues, I think, figuring out how that can work nicely as opposed to being like, oh, you can't do X, Y, and Z every time.
Yeah, I hope that in the future we don't need to do any skill restrictions at all. And the restrictions will be self-imposed based on the items that we make.
Yeah, it's kind of cooler on our end to build stuff as opposed to coming up with these intricate restrictions that are still interesting. And then the last thing I have here is the new NPCs, the vendors that you added to the League Chapter House was a huge improvement. I think people who used alchemy as their way of volning just absolutely loved being able to buy the components right in the Chapter House. And there were some other quality of life things around those NPCs, which I think was just such a great addition.
Yeah, it's another one of those kind of filling in the shortcomings of it being a league. Nobody wants to have to grind for crafting supplies, right? So making the Aqua Vitae stuff available at the shop, people were using the alchemy gems, and I don't think they would have otherwise.
Yeah, I tried to use alchemy in Oracle League, and it just, like, my limited playtime and then spending that, like, crafting felt so it was just not great. So I think that's so nice for players to have that. So, we can't only talk about things that went right. So we're going to talk about some of the things that we thought went wrong or some of the feedback. So the first one is restrictions around the content. So for instance, when you turned in a trophy, there was a 4-hour timer on the turn-in. When you did a kill task, you were restricted for doing it within I believe a 50 level increment. So if you could do the level 50 kill tasks, the level 100 kill tasks, or the level 150 or 200. You couldn't do more than one of those. We did do a mid-league change to open up 2 brackets at once because we saw some of this feedback while the league was happening. Is that something that you think we would change if we do something like this again?
Yeah, definitely. For the trophies, really it was just the easiest way to implement what we were going for. I think if we had more time to develop it, I'd want to do something more like the red and gold letters, where you're allowed to turn in whatever it is, 20 per day, and then you hit a timer. So that way people could grind out as many trophies as they want and just turn them in, and then hold on to the rest for another day.
Yeah, I think that trophy timer originally kind of originated because we first of all used a trophy that didn't have any timer for pickup, right? It was like super easy to pick up the essences from Viridian Rise if players got there. And then we're also giving out currency for these trophies. So if you got something that was like super easy to get, now you can just get all this currency and it blows up the kind of mini economy.
Yeah, the first or second trophy was Managwat, or Manugit, I guess is how it's said. And that would give you 1 coin, and you could just go grind a dungeon, the pit or something, and just end up with a bunch of money that way if there was no timer. So we wanted to put a timer on it for that. And the kill task level restrictions, the original idea behind that was it's a barbarian giving you kill tasks. He's not impressed by you killing things that are 200 levels lower than you, right? So it was on brand for the NPC, but I get it that like it didn't really work out once you got to higher levels, and you all of a sudden you got to 200 and you lost the level 100 kill tasks.
Yeah, so I think that just felt bad for players who like hit the new level bracket and then were like not good enough to do the next tier, but now can't do the previous tier. So that's just something we'll think about next time we're doing these NPCs.
And I had one more thing to say about the trophies, which isn't necessarily a what went wrong thing, but it's something that I didn't see mentioned anywhere, which is that most of these trophies were givable, which meant you could give other players league currency and league points. And I didn't see that being used very much. So
I know I got some help from you, and for like you gave me a stack of nougat one day, and that was helpful for me. So
yeah, I was kind of expecting to see some of those trophies just be piled up in the chest, and I never noticed it. So I don't know if people were doing it or not, but it was another reason why we wanted to have those timers on there, so it wasn't just a free-for-all.
Yeah, awesome. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is some of the items, stats, and requirements were not balanced great. And I think that goes back to our discussion about, our original intention with the Karenzi League and what we were hoping to do there. The one that's like major and comes to mind is one that I used, which is the Verindi Consoles Trinket, which while it requires level 80, it required a base deception of 225, which you had to be like over level 100 and put all of your points into deception in order to use it. I think that was just maybe an oversight on our part, or my part really, on the skill requirement there. Anything you want to say about those? I mean, it's just something that we need to take a better look at next time. And, if these items do come back, I think we'll just take another pass at the balance around these.
Yeah, I think we will spend some time looking at the requirements for those and adjust some of them. I know that one of the things you had in mind when we were designing them was having a variety of level requirements so that as players leveled up, they'd have a new thing to purchase. They wouldn't just be purchasing stuff at level 50 and 100 and 150.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that one just should have said 180 instead of 80. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is maybe if something like this does come back, we would maybe add another tier where like, we only had 3 consoles trinkets, and that was partially just a time restriction. And maybe if these do come back, maybe we'll have 4 or 5 where, like, there's a top end that goes to epics, kind of similar to the way the rings and the bracelets did. And this one would get a lower deception requirement and be more of a mid-tier trinket.
I think we'd be doing that.
We have a lot of options to kind of adjust this and make it more useful and more fun for future leagues if they do come back. So, but we definitely do understand the feedback around that. So, like I said, that's something that we would look at. The next thing I have here is some of the quest selections, specifically the level 100 plus Dark Isle Crystal quest, which is at level 100 very, very difficult, if not impossible, just due to the way the monsters were designed with all of the drains and harm spells.
That one's on me. I was, again, so we kind of pivoted pretty late in the design of the league, and I was just looking for quests that were 50 plus, 100 plus, etc. Right, and this is one of the 100 plus quests. And I was like, oh, that's a good group quest. No one ever runs it because the boss is a pain in the ass. So I thought I'd throw it in there. It's 100 plus. The contract says it's 100 plus. The portal's 100 plus, but it's really like 150 plus. So it was just I didn't actually have time to run through the dungeon and see how bad it was when I was building it.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of a poor design by Turbine on that one, but I tried to do this at level like 150 and I got absolutely destroyed. I didn't end up completing that one until near the end in a group, which was really fun to do in a group. It was a good quest with a group. It's an interesting quest that probably nobody ever does, or I think I've probably done that once previously. But just the difficulty level is a lot higher.
I do think the first 2 quests were pretty good picks. I mean, sure, some people didn't like the first one does require lockpick, but they were pretty easy to solo. And I mean, I only did the first 2 quests. I never made it past those ones, and I qualified for the quest reward just fine. So I think there was still enough points to go around.
Yeah, like the energy crystal was a great daily that you could do if you life stoned out there, or if you just made the long run. Like, it's a pretty easy, simple quest. I did that a few times myself.
I used the convenient statues here to go to the Southland Bridge and just run there. It was not so bad.
Yep. All right, so the last thing we kind of wanted to talk about, which I touched on previously, which is just some player drop-off. I think in the very beginning, we mentioned there were like 131 characters created as part of the league and 64 on the leaderboard. And then, towards the end, there were not that many players playing. And we kind of talked about this before as being like, hey, maybe that's a good thing. Like, people didn't feel the need to grind until the very end to make, personal rewards. And then the greater group rewards also were pretty achievable this time around. So it's, like I said, it's also something that major companies struggle with, of getting people to stick around and play their seasonal content for a long time. Players have a lot of options for their time and things that they can do when they're playing games. So, just something that we are thinking about, but probably, it's not really like a bad thing, but it's something that we're taking into consideration when we're designing this also. Anything you want to add to that one?
I think you pretty much said everything I'd want to say about that too.
So next we wanted to just kind of address some feedback. So the first one that comes up a lot is storage, mules, alternative characters. In Banner League, we added 5 storage chests in the League chapter house. In Auric League, you were able to make alternate characters, and then in Banner League and now in Chittick League, we got rid of that ability. You can only make 1 character per league now. And personally, my thought on it is I like the 1 character per league. For, we're playing on Levistras. We only have 2 accounts. I've been playing on Levistras for, I think, like over 4 years now. I have 24 characters. My accounts are full, so I have to delete a character every time I play. So someone who's maybe newer is going to have an advantage if they, make 2 characters. In Auric League, it definitely felt like an advantage because the crafting skills were part of the class trees. So if you were able to make a mule and craft on that mule. That was an advantage. You didn't have to work with other players, which is the whole point of the league, is to have fun and work with other players. So personally, I don't see this rule changing, but maybe you have a different perspective on it than me.
No, I think the rule is good where it is, especially with alts. What I don't want to have happen is power players having two power characters and just completing the whole league by themselves. The big point of this league was to get people playing together, right? So I I don't think that alts make sense for what we're trying to do. And regarding the mules and storage, I think what we're going for is making it so that those aren't required,
Right.
and it's a mindset that people are going to have to change when they're playing leagues. But and obviously there's still work to be done on it. There's not really good alternatives for grinding legendary suits or anything, right? But that's what we're aiming for, is that the storage is there to share supplies, but not to be your mule. And you shouldn't need to have, you know, a whole character worth of items stocked up.
Yeah, and I'm the worst of any player. Like my bags are terrible. I carry so much junk around, so I get it. Like, but it's like he's like what like A said, it's kind of a mindset of, hey, I found something cool that I want to keep. Let me just dump this Eye of the Fallen that I have in my bag, or just you just have to make it work. Unfortunately, I think that the storage chests were a huge upgrade. Those were great for helping players work together and share things. Unfortunately, they do reset if the server goes down, and there's nothing we can really do about that. There's no way to like persist the storage through a server reset. So I know that was brought up in the feedback as well, but that's not something that currently, at least to my understanding, is technically possible.
We could maybe make the chapter house a house, like player housing, but that is a whole other challenge there. So it it's going to stay how it is unless Spigot has an idea to address it, because the same issue affects the town network storage as well.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, I would rather spend our very limited design and building time for these leagues on making cool items and making cool maybe quests and, stuff like that, as opposed to figuring out storage, which I understand like a lot of players are concerned about, but also doesn't like make or break these leagues.
Yeah, and we do have a fairly easy option of adding more packs into the chests, but it has the downside of when a reset hits, even more stuff is lost. So
Yeah.
I'm not certain if it's worth it, but it is something we could do.
Yep. So like, it's something we're thinking about, and right now probably not going to change for currently planned future leagues. So the next thing we wanted to talk about was allegiances versus no allegiances. So for those who don't know, Auroch League, there was no allegiances allowed. Banner League, we did allow allegiances, and now Chittick League, we've removed allegiances again. My, again, personal thoughts on this is that no allegiances was the better way to run the league. Takes away any kind of unfair advantages of getting XP passed up to you, and it puts everybody on a level playing field. And it takes away if you're not in the allegiance, you're kind of left out and not getting to participate in that allegiance chat. So personally, I think that that's something that's going to stay for future leagues. What do you think, A?
Yeah, I think comparing Banner League and this one, this felt better to me. I was in the Allegiance in Banner League, but I noticed that a lot more chat was happening in /A rather than the roleplay channel. And since there was no Allegiance, there was a lot more activity in roleplay this time around, which opened it up to a lot more of the players. And then that's what we're going for. We want more people interacting, playing together. So I don't see Allegiance coming back.
Yeah, and one thing we did around the roleplay channel is we added just some language at the introduction to the league. Like when you flag, I believe, the NPC told you like, hey, join channel roleplay and how to do it. So hopefully any players who were kind of didn't know about that were they were introduced in the game to that being a thing.
Yeah, that was some feedback we actually had from Spigot, the previous league, is that some players don't really interact with Discord that much, which is fine. But it means that when we need to communicate important information, it should be done in game. So we added that.
So for Chittick League, we did make some changes to the way you can name your character. So previously you had to put the league initials at the start of your name, and this league we added the ability to put them at the end. Do we have any plans for changing that going forward, or making any additional changes to that?
I think it's an imperfect system, but it's the best we have right now, so I don't see it changing immediately.
Yeah, I think that this was good. Something that we didn't like and don't really know how to fix at this point is we had several players with basically the exact same name, but one put like a dash after the CL and one didn't, or one before the CL and one didn't. We definitely want people to be have unique names, so we may just think about that a little bit further for future leagues to think about ways we can make that better.
Yes, I was one of those characters. I was one of the clone and the barbarians.
Yes.
And yeah, it got a little confusing even to me.
That's funny. I mean, I knew that you were the one with the dash, but then I saw the other clone in the barbarian, and I was like, "Oh, is that him?" Oh, wait, no. I had to do a double take a few times. And then the last thing is, I don't know. Do you want to talk about the way that the league ends and how that works with getting the rewards and possibly making that work a little bit better?
Yeah, so we added a little bit of special effects to the end of this league. There's fireworks going off in the background right now.
Yep.
And that was just make it a little bit more fun and, a celebration that it's completed. But one of the downsides, it's not really clear what happens at that point. There's NPCs that appear, but they don't announce that they're there. And then when you get the tokens, there's no, dialogue telling you to go to the other NPCs. So I don't know what I want to do, but I want to change something about that so it's more smooth. And again, so that players that are only in game and aren't looking at Discord aren't lost. And I don't like the communication about how you have to transfer the tokens to your main character or you'll accidentally get the rewards on your lead character. So I want to figure out a way to make it so that you can just turn them in with your lead character and then worry about transferring. So no concrete ideas yet, but it's something I want to improve on.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we can always keep making better and just clearer for players so that there's no confusion. Awesome. So that's all the feedback that we wanted to go through. I think the next thing we wanted to talk about was some future leagues. So the Drudge League is not going to be designed by us. There's going to be some other content creators taking charge of that league, which is super exciting. AA and I are going to be able to get surprised like the rest of you for what is coming with that. We don't have any dates that we can share or any more concrete information on that, but think that that's going to be super fun and we're looking forward to it. We are able to talk about what we are calling the Empyrean League. That's going to be the next league that AA and I are designing. So we can talk a bit about our plans, but not too much because we don't want to commit to anything at this point. But likely this league is going to involve the introduction of some classes that you can play with custom items similar to what we had in the Chittick League, custom vendors, and likely a class custom currency and quests. Then likely we'll continue the main league style where you're in the chapter house with some different NPCs that you're going to interact with and complete tasks for them. Yeah, anything else you want to add about our plans for the Empyrean League?
Yeah, the NPCs that we used this time around should be making another appearance in that league. And that may be a clue for what kind of classes we're using.
I like it. Yeah, so we're really excited to work on the Empyrean League. I think it's going to be, we have so many ideas. It's a matter of honing them down and figuring out the ones that are going to be the most fun for the players to engage with. But I think it should be really cool. I think we also wanted to talk about potentially having some more variety in future leagues. Where we have kind of smaller, like short leagues or kind of, I don't want to call them like throwaway, but just like, kind of short one-off, very interesting different leagues, and then more like big main leagues, kind of like Chittick League was.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Drudge League is going to be, and it could open up a whole bunch of ideas for what we could do for the off leagues, non-chapter house leagues that are open to a little bit more variety in what the league is about.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting, and for me and for you, I'm sure it'll be cool to play and take part without being 100% in the know. It's kind of it's not as fun when you are like, oh, where's that hidden Nanjo statue, and you can just go to our design document and be like, oh, that's where it is. That's all that I have for this. Anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
That's all for me too.
Awesome. So thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed the Chittick League, and we'll see you in the next one.